Good afternoon. It's still afternoon. Late afternoon, it's afternoon. This is a committee meeting of the Clear Creek Community Services District. It's the Planning Steering Committee, and both Director Terry Lincoln and myself are on the steering committee, Planning and Steering Committee. The first item on the agenda is a call to order. And we just did that. With us today also is Kayla Falks, who's taking the minutes, and our General Manager, Paul Kelly. And welcome all you people today. Second thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll do that. Terry, you want to lead us in the pledge? Sure. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We did the roll call.
Yep.
Now we need to elect the chair of the committee. Terry, want to be the chair?
Nope.
Okay.
You're doing such a good job and you've got the gavel right next to you. So
Okay, well, okay.
keep up the good work.
Okay. I will keep doing it. All right. Open time, public comment. I'll read it again. Pursuant to Governing Code S54950, persons wishing to address the board of directors on matters not listed on the agenda should notify the secretary prior to the start of the meeting to speak at this time, and for any item listed on the agenda, raise your hand. When recognized by the chair, proceed to the podium to address the board. That's the legal thing to say, but we're kind of loose in here. Anybody want to speak in open time? Okay, we'll move on. Move on to old business, new business. Discussion, and this is well, by the way, the Planning and Steering Committee cannot make decisions for the board. You probably already know that. The Planning and Steering Committee, after discussion in this roundtable format, then will make recommendations to the board, which will go to the board, and the board will then make a decision on things. So the first thing on the agenda is review district policies and procedures. The first one is the general administrative policy.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, wanted to provide the other thing. I did put from these own general administrative policies is a little committee responsibility statement up at the top where it says the board standing planning and steering committee shall be concerned with the formation of plans and policies for arranging, realizing, and or achieving Clear Creek CSD goals. So we broke this up into policies and plans. And I think in talking to Director Lincoln in particular, when you, well, it doesn't even take that. Just take a look at the board's or the district's website and go to policies, and you can see we've posted nicely a lot of policies on there. And some of them may not be germane to today's operation. Some of them may be old, and some of them may be great. You never know. So we just really kind of selected the first three to start looking at, and then we'd like to take a recommendation from the committee on some other ones. So that's why you have these first three, and then any thoughts that you may have for that. And then I think what I was hoping for is both the committee and community just input on these, and we can start editing and bring it back to them before it goes back to the board for adoption.
Okay.
So just kind of a context. And then, as said, the committee is for also kind of the planning side of the world. So the section B here is for plans. Director Fuss provided just sort of a little lump memo that we'd like to review. But also I have on there that, you know, one of the things the district doesn't really have is a readily available capital improvement plan, that I think we should start looking at doing. So those are just things why the agenda is set up this way, and, you know, if you want to change it, feel free to do that, but that was the idea. Let's take a look at 3 policies, take some input from you and the community, and we'll go and edit, fix, update, and then bring it back to you, and then get it to the board.
Okay. Terry, any questions about this?
I understood it, so.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions. The board responsible for hiring periodic evaluation every 2 years, the general manager who is responsible for the oversight. No, oh no, that's one down. Each director must receive training every 2 years in the Brown Act, yep, and ethics, AB 123, or whatever that is. I think you also have to do sexual harassment, don't you? You've done it in the past.
I would say that it is yes, anybody who is affiliated or employed by the district should do sexual harassment. And the fact that it's not in these administrative policies is an oversight.
Okay. Now, I may be wrong, but I think so. I've been doing it for years.
Well, everywhere else I have been, really, since AB 1234 has been into effect, whether you were on the board or in this seat or in that seat or in anywhere out there, you have to go through sexual harassment training. And
that's my understanding of it.
I just realized that I think my certification is expiring, so I better go do that. But it should actually be in the policies that all directors come to as well.
And just a question here. Maybe I'm not that computer savvy or something, but I got the information from Kayla about how to go about accessing the Brown Act. Have you been able to do that?
No, I just talked to her about it, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, same me. I can't.
No.
Can't get. I can get to that website, but then can't get the Brown Act for some reason. So if you can give us a better route, that would be good.
Well, I think we'll work on that. It is definitely one of the things since I've been here that we've struggled with, and Kayla has developed a much better relationship with Aqua JPIA than before. And so they have a lot of these things, and you know, truthfully, all of the logins and codes are for people that haven't been at the district for years. So that's part of it, is just getting updated on that. I will just mention that, you know, actually Kayla just had JPIA training, what was that one about today? Workers' comp. So that one of the beauties of our IT upgrades is we're going to get 2 new workstations in the main office there, and so for our admin assistant and our account clerk. And this one in this extra office is an old Windows 7, so we're going to take the still good administrative assistant machine, move it in there, and that way it would be available for staff and board members to actually come in here and do an online training.
Oh, that'd be good.
Yeah.
So just because we don't really have any offices in which there aren't people all around you, right? So just having that for some of our other staff, they have some operators training that they could do online and use that there. And I figure, you know, if all of us are having challenges to get to something, then why don't we just come down here and schedule yourself for an hour, and Kayla can get you in, and then we can just do it there. So that's another thought.
Excellent. Yeah.
I got another question on the policy. On the second last page, it talks about the specific asset and liability accounts. It talks about general checking account, and it says excess funds in this account are transferred to short-term investments when feasible. Do we have any short-term investments identified that we can put money in? I don't think we do.
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah. We don't have enough money to put in investments.
No.
We don't want to find any stocks, do we?
I wouldn't recommend it at this point. But I would say that, I think it was at Hidden Valley Lake, that there is, and you might recall from the county, there is a fund that is called the Local Agency Investment Fund.
Yeah.
I think it's called LIFECO or LEFCO, something like that.
Like that,
And
yeah.
it's very safe, it's like 2 or 3% return, but a lot of public agencies use it to park some of their money.
Yeah.
If we're ever in a position like that, then maybe that's what we could do. And maybe we can modify this to say, it's not currently.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just curious if we had anything identified that we could put money in except the bank.
At this point, I don't think so.
When I was working, the tribes had, theirs were automatically, when they got over, $100,000 in the bank automatically put it into something at the bank, so it was protected, and it wasn't showing up on their accounts, their checking account and that, so. And that was done through the banks automatically, so the tribe didn't even have to mess with it.
Yeah.
Because they'd get some pretty good sized checks sometime.
That's good intel, actually. You know, I am considering looking into getting some proposals for our banking that we do. We're currently with Tri-Counties Bank, and you know, just my experience is that sometimes, just like auditors, it's a good idea to change every 5 or 6 years or whatever. So there may be some good purposes for that, and that could be something we could write into a proposal. And we're looking for proposals, and how would they handle when you have some, you know, when you trigger putting your money into something that gets you a little better return if it's not going to be used right away.
Right.
Yeah, like what the tribes did. Yeah. That's a good idea. You know, I just think, you know, if we're looking at a new billing software system, you know, updating our banking, I think we've been concerned about the fees charged by the current bank.
Tri-Counties is the highest fees of any of the banks.
What's that?
Tri-Counties is the highest fees of any banks around.
I wouldn't know, but I'm not surprised. So I think that's part of the reason why but, you know, the other thing is, and I know that some of my own staff think, yeah, we should look at getting a bank. I just don't want to just willy-nilly ask them, you know, who's out there interested in doing banking with us. I want to ask them some specific questions like this one. Well, you know, our fees, you know, again, this is probably more for the finance committee, but when somebody pays their bill by a credit card, currently we have a little credit card machine there, and we charge them 3% because that's what the bank charges us. And so we receive, if it's a $100 bill, then we receive $103. It goes into our checking account. $100 gets posted to the customer, and then eventually we pay $3 to the bank at the end of the month or whatever it might be. I don't like that. Just doesn't make sense, and I know other banks do it differently. In other words, they charge somebody $103. Our account gets $100. The $3 goes straight to them. We shouldn't be responsible for that accounting side of things. So those are things that our current bank does that are very irritating and that we look to change.
Now, is that Tri-Counties Bank?
Yeah.
Terry, any questions?
I think they need to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open it up now to the public. Go ahead, Paul.
I think, you know, one of the things, you know, I'll be updating the full board on this too, is, you know, the LAFCO's doing a municipal service review. They had asked for a lot of information. This was one of the things they wanted, which was our general administrative policies. As you can see at the top, they were approved in February of 2010 and then reviewed in 2022. So I think we want to amend and update them. So like one of the things, now that we have a new MOU, and we have all new staff, the preparation of time cards, that little thing needs to be updated. The other thing too is payroll distribution. We have a line in there, the district strongly encourages the use of direct deposit due to the efficiencies created. We haven't done that, and I'm not sure I want to do it with our current bank. So on the other hand, I do think it's good to have it in there to be encouraged, but we haven't done it.
Yeah.
We probably should have in here more information about the implementation of the MOU, like what the different withholdings are. The practice of the district until the adoption of the MOU was that when the pay period ended, everybody turned in their time card and they were paid the next day. And so you might recall we changed that in the MOU because we have a lot of processes that need to be happening when people turn in their time cards. They have to be turned in by Friday morning after the end of the time period. Our administrative assistant goes through them, make sure that everything's fine, make sure people have signed them, make sure all the rest of that stuff before it goes to the payroll clerk, enter them in and run paychecks. And so we don't actually pay people until the following Thursday at the end of that pay period. And again, it just probably should be at least referenced in this, and then eventually when we have an employee handbook, it will be in there, which we don't have, but we're gonna work. I just wanted to point that out to just why I think there's some other amendments.
I've got a couple of questions, or a couple statements, I guess. The committee responsibilities,
Yeah.
I think need to be completely redone. I don't like any of them really. But the one that got me was the personnel committee. It seems like that's all union stuff in there. And I just thought
Where are we? We're
Page 2.
we still.
Well, it starts on the page
Administrative.
one. Right there at the bottom, it says the committee responsibilities.
Are you still on the
Yeah,
general administrative
Yes.
policy?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
First page at
Yeah,
the
I got
bottom.
it,
I just think they should be beefed up a little bit and what is actually, the committees should be doing.
Yeah, I think, I think this triggers an opportunity to think about your committees, and I think the descriptions are too brief.
Right, too vague.
And stuff. But on the other hand, it's kind of a board policy that maybe in the past served the board well. I'm not sure it does now. From my perspective, most districts that I've been around in the past have gotten rid of their personnel committee, mostly because once there's a union and an MOU, it's kind of like, what else? And I know it looks like in the last couple of years, the personnel committee here tried to deal with the general manager recruitment and some of those other things, but really ultimately that's the board's responsibility to do the general manager. So really having a committee do that is not really fair to all the board and all the district, in my opinion, but that's again my opinion. So if we want to go to the board and recommend that we remove or get rid of one of these committees, that would be their decision, not yours.
I think it's something we need to look at.
Yeah.
if I shed some light on that, number one, the explanation of these different committees was at the time, made so that they'd be kind of broad and open-ended, so that a lot of things could fall under their auspices. Not to get too specific on things, because then you're kind of confined to it. So that was the original idea. The Personnel Committee, when we did have a person, when we used to, the board committee used to deal with personnel matters, was back when, that was before they had a union. That's when they had the Party Association here. And so that was meant to deal with that. Since we now have an MOU, you could get rid of that personnel committee, really. There's no need to do that, because when it comes time to, negotiate with the union, you're the guy. And you work it out with the union, bring it to the board, we approve it or don't approve it.
Well, again, that's why, you know, I'm just gonna look towards you and the board to make this decision. I mean, my recommendation is that you do not need a personnel committee anymore. Because the board no longer is responsible for the personnel of the district. You're only responsible for one personnel member of the district, the general manager. You have a contract with me. I'm your employee, the rest of everybody else is kind of my employee, but they're part of the union, they're part of the MOU. And all discipline, all reviews, and all the rest of that stuff is covered by that. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, again, if I don't do that well, then you hold me responsible. You can't go and do that with them. So, that's all.
Is that
That's
something?
just the way things work.
Is that something we can recommend to the board?
I think we should, yeah.
Okay. So, before we go any further, we need to hear from the public. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments?
I think Director Lincoln, you had something else that you wanted to ask about.
Well, I've got some more questions, but we can
Go
go,
ahead, go ahead.
we,
Go ahead with your question, then we'll open it to
okay, under the board's planning and steering committee, it says goals. Do we have any goals? Have we ever had any goals?
I think if you look at Director Fust's memo, that's part of where we're getting to.
Yeah.
Is that I think ultimately one of the things this committee, and I would be hoping for this committee to do, is not only reviewing and updating our policies, looking at our plans, like things like development CIP, but really putting together our goals. What are our district goals?
Well, we do have a mission statement.
That's a
It
good one.
probably needs to be updated, but we do have one. And that could be considered the goals of the district.
Yeah, but you need short-term, long-term
Yeah.
goals. You need actual goals that we can work towards. And,
That's why I put the memo together.
yeah.
Good question, but that's what that's really one of the reasons why I put it on the top of your agenda too, even though it may not be super clear and vague, but it gives, if we thought we didn't have anything to do, we were wrong. There's stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing on the roles of your general manager and staff, you're gonna go through those and update them. You have your bookkeeper go through the accounts management and that, payable and management. But she'll go through all of that and give us some recommendations on how to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and the other thing too is, we haven't, I don't know if I've actually ever found ordinance 0407, which is our alleged ethics and whistleblower ordinance. So we need to go and check on that. We have a reference to a expense and travel reimbursement ordinance that needs to be looked at.
Okay, the ethics one is in the handbook,
Yeah.
so.
I know that Director Lincoln has identified that the compensation policy in ethics has already been updated
Yeah.
And we get the wrong one, but we'll get to that one next.
Yeah.
Let's stick to this one. You know, there's, record keeping, again, back to just sort of the payroll stuff and timesheets, we're looking to update that as per what we have.
That's all stuff that your ladies in the office know more about than we do.
Well,
Yeah.
Any other questions, Terry?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, now I'll open it up to the public. Anybody wishes to speak? If not, then we'll bring it back to this committee. And, from what I'm hearing, you're, talking about the possibility of, well, first of all, investigating whether sexual harassment should be part of this, this policy. And, we were
We
talking
can
about.
recommend that it should be, because, you know, I agree that it should be in there, so.
I think
I would
it should be.
recommend that we, you
Okay.
know, take that forward.
All right. And also recommend that we, suggest to the board that they get rid of the personnel committee? Or can we do that?
well, if I could be so bold, Mr. Chairman, we are taking notes on your conversation, and I think what I would like to do is have myself and staff go through this, make the edits, add in things like the sexual harassment item, maybe scratch out the personnel committee and just line. In other words, we're not gonna remove it, we're just gonna edit it that way. We're gonna update the payables, as well as the payroll section. I'm gonna update a little bit on that checking account and investment thing, just so that it's not so vague, or not so that it sounds like we actually are doing it right now. And then at our next planning and steering meeting, you'll have that update, and then you can make a recommendation to the
So you
board.
bring that back to the planning and
I think
steering.
it should go back to you first before we go to the board.
All right.
I'd like to see the community look through it and get us comments too, and, you know,
There's copies back there. It's on the website.
you know,
Send me your comments.
Any consideration?
Just make sure they're legible.
Okay,
Good.
we done with that one?
Yeah, you know, the next one on our list was this compensation policy that was sitting on our website, and,
that's this one. We did it in 2022.
and, I have been informed by our,
You've got the old one, this is a new one.
Oh, this is update, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Kayla made a copy of that.
Oh, okay.
You can't have that one.
Okay, let me look and see.
all right, so Director Lincoln, can you please educate all of us on, why the one that I have identified on our agenda is passé?
I remember, we went through the thing and decided that we would not have, the old one had the mileage reimbursements and all that in there, and we went through it and said, no, just put in there that we use the current GSA or whatever,
IRS.
yeah, information, and that's what we did, and it was, there's a resolution and everything, 22-08, so, that's already been done and taken care of, so.
Yep. So I think,
I didn't get this.
no, well, we didn't have it.
It was in my handbook,
It was in his handbook,
so on the front cover, like somebody had stuffed it in there.
so,
I got the old one, which used to be.
You had to sign it, so it's got your name on it, the sheriff,
so I think to the board, Kayla will look into her, magic binder to find a version of this that is signed. And, we will PDF it and get it posted on the website. And then, I don't think we need to do any more updates to it since it was just done.
Well, just briefly looking at what you got there, I see where the edits have been made. So-
Yeah.
And so,
Which brings it up to date.
yeah, and once we do that, we'll get it put on the website, and we'll send you a copy of it, Director Fuss, so that you now have an updated copy.
Okay, any other,
Now that I have an updated copy.
anything else about that one? Okay. Anybody from the, community wishes to speak about that? Okay, we'll move on.
All right, well,
Reserve policy.
this one is an interesting one, and I really, it's just an example of a couple of policies that we have posted on our website that haven't been looked at for a long time. So this was done in 2008.
What?
2008.
Yeah.
And you can see, that, and I could see where in November of 2008, about the time the economic crash was just starting to really crest and go over, the board, created, this reserve policy. You'll see in the first section there's a little thing from the Little Hoover Commission, regarding independent water district reserve funds. So I think, and I do remember, there being sort of some hubbub over the Little Hoover Commission's thing. I mean, counties and cities and special districts were all, up in arms about it, I guess, for want of a better
Well,
term.
the state was looking for money,
Yeah,
and the Little Hoover Commission, with their study, seemed to indicate that the state could come for the reserve funds we had, because we didn't have them designated exactly. That's why we put this together,
right.
so that you can't get,
Right. And so, one of the things that there was concern about was that, well-operated and prudent districts and cities and counties that had reserve funds mostly had them for reasons. But there were times in which they may have been held in general reserves. And during that economic downturn, there was really concern that they were gonna go in and scoop it all up and take it. And
that's right.
similar to what they did with ERAP 10 years prior with
Right.
schools and stuff. My suggestion is that this was a good thing, but it's been a long time and we should probably update it.
I agree.
So any input, any thoughts? I don't know if we need this big introduction about the Little Hoover Commission and these elements of our intent of this plan, but clearly having a district reserve description of our reserve fund, and we probably have more now. I know we have an OPEB fund that we have as a reserve fund. We have WINACT reserve fund. So we have some ones that we need to add to this list as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, yeah. Terry, any questions about it?
No, I agree that they should be spelled out, whether we've got all that junk in the front or not. They should at least be spelled out what they're for, so anybody coming in can see what we're using our money for. So.
Yeah. Now, my question is, some of the reserve funds that we set aside here, do they adequately, do the dollar figures adequately reflect modern day?
I doubt it.
For instance, the one, the USBR Emergency Reserve, was at that time $35,000 was the amount that was established. Is that the correct amount now?
No.
Would you need amounts in there, or?
No.
No, I wouldn't.
No.
I would think that would make it broader, so that we don't have to update it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recommendation is I will definitely check to make sure, but I don't think we're required to have amounts, and I don't recommend having amounts.
Okay.
Now, I do think that putting myself a little bit in the shoes of those that were here 15 years ago, there was some thought that they wanted to have amounts in here so that, like the one that had a target of $2 million, so that somehow, if there was ever an attempt to go take some of that money, that they couldn't say, oh, well, your target was 2 million and you got 8 million, so we're gonna take 6. I'm just using round numbers. I think that might have been the thinking of having some numbers in there, but I really would recommend we don't. And that's another reason to update this, because
Yeah, back then it was thought that we just take the amounts that we had, put a fence around it by
Yeah.
sticking it in there. You know, so you can't come in and take it. Because there was a good thought that the state was looking for money at that time. You probably remember that.
I do.
And, they were looking to find anything they could. Okay, Terry, anything else on this one?
No, I agree, the money should be out of there.
Okay. Now you have others that, yeah, you have the other ones that need to be added to this, right?
Yeah. So again, open to any suggestions from the community as well. But what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll edit. We'll try to find if there's any kind of more generic language for a reserve fund policy at the beginning. In other words, not so focused on the conditions of 2008, the Little Hoover Commission and the state's assault on reserves. And then we'll update it with some of our items related to the funds that we now have. And then we'll get back to you at a subsequent planning meeting before we take it to the board.
Okay. You got nothing else, Terry? I'll open it for the public. Anybody wish to speak on this particular ordinance? Okay, we'll then come back to the board here and.
Are we sure,
Yeah, come on up.
are we sure that we don't have an updated reserve amount, or, I mean, because it could be like, the latest one that Terry found.
Wasn't in the book or online, so.
An updated,
Reserves.
well, the reserves are there. I mean, that's part of QuickBooks now. And we can, hopefully we're gonna be able to see that at our next meeting. We can find out what exactly is in the reserves, because the way the other, accounting went, is kind of difficult to know. So we do have reserves, but they're not as good as what it's spelled out in the old reserve policy.
Yeah,
A lot of it was used.
Yeah, but I think part of what is being asked is, are we sure between 2008 and now, the district hasn't done a subsequent updated reserve policy? And I can't say it for 100% sure, but we have not found one yet.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, that's good from the historian on the board. We couldn't find one. We looked in some our ordinances.
Anything else? Okay, so then the idea here is to have our general manager look at this, take the money amounts out,
Mm-hmm.
and to add any other reserve accounts that we have accumulated over the years.
Right.
Okay, bring it back to the committee. All right.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
How are you gonna know how much to put in? If you take it out of the policy, how are you gonna direct them to put certain amounts in certain reserve accounts? Like, what are you gonna set as targets for those? So if the money's disappeared, because I agree, you don't wanna redo it all the time, but there has to be a plan for reserve accounts.
It would seem to me, it's a good question. It would seem to me that a lot of these accounts, and the money that's in it, first of all, on some of them, it's specified, like for instance, the filter plant reserve, that's based upon the $7.55 you pay every month. And so that has to go in there, so it's a set amount. Some of these other, amounts,
They're mostly for specific projects, is what you would have. If you were doing a project, you'd have a reserve account for that project.
and the other thing is, a lot of this would be driven by the capital improvement program. You know, what's it gonna cost to do what we need to do in the future?
Okay.
So what do you have to put in the bank to hold on to that so you can do that in the future?
Good with me.
Move forward, okay. Other policies for future meetings.
Well, I just thought I would, up to, if there's anything hot on either of your plates that you would like us to bring to our next one.
Got anything, Terry?
Yep. The vehicle operation, we, as a community, made a lot of comments about the vehicle operations, and they slammed this one through, and I don't even remember it being brought to the board, or wasn't at any of the meetings that I was at that I remember. I'd like to review that one. The competitive bid policy was 2005. I think that one probably needs to be updated real quick. So, yeah. Oh, you've already done that, or?
No, if you had asked me, I would have suggested that was one that we should really look into.
Yeah, I went through and looked at all the numbers, and the other things I've got is, and you brought it up, the personnel policy. Do we have personnel policies? There's nothing in our handbook for it.
Well, I think, one of the things I reported to the board at the approval of the MOU is that the past practice for the district has been to refer to the MOU as the personnel handbook.
Okay, that's fine.
No, it's not. I mean, it is because we have one, and so it's identifiable. The problem is that's very bad. I do not believe that is best practices.
Okay.
You really should have a personnel handbook that has certain things in it. Like, I'm sure you had one too, that has, it always referred to the MOU for things, but there's some things that you want. In other words, you really shouldn't have to, we've given every one of our employees, the MOU because it's their handbook. But, looking up section 16.2.3 to find out when your payday is gonna be is really not great. It should be part of a 3 or 4 page handbook. So, we've actually been talking to a government services agency that provides sort of on-call or HR services, as well as really developing public agency handbooks that refer to them. So, what I'm hopeful for is that we will get a draft and bring this to you all at some point in the community, and us, we can all work on that and eventually get it approved. And then that will be their personnel policies and handbook, and it'll refer to the MOU, but it'll be that.
So the policies, it'll be policies/handbook, because I had them written down separate items, because they were referred as separate items in there, so.
They should be separate.
So we have to have a policy and a handbook?
I don't know that for sure. I should take that back. I think it's best that we have a handbook and not necessarily policies.
Okay. Travel policies. I didn't find anything on travel policies, and I didn't find anything on petty cash.
Oh, isn't that what's spelled out in the, first one we dealt with?
On the admin,
Yeah, the admin?
well, I think to Director Lincoln's point, there's a reference to an ordinance 2000-05, and that sounds like that's our travel policy. So not super open and, public. So I believe we should either have a separate one or incorporate it into this one.
Yeah.
Not have it just as a reference to an ordinance that nobody can find.
No.
As to, petty cash, it's
If not a policy, at least procedures.
it just needs to be a procedure. I have instituted, I don't know if we have one, but I instituted some things in our office, and, I think Director Lincoln is right. It really needs to be, it may well be just, we need to add it to the administrative.
You already got something in there
Yeah,
about petty cash.
yeah. That's a good point.
So you're suggesting something a little more intricate than what's here on petty cash?
Yeah, I think we need procedures, needs to be spelled out so that everybody knows how they do petty cash.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, you see, and part of the reason why is that, and why I've instituted with our account clerk, our bookkeeper, and admin is that, we get a lot of cash running through the district for people that pay their bills, and I'm not so sure how that mingled or commingled with petty cash in the past, and that needs, so now it's like this is for bills, these are accounts taxes.
Yeah.
Petty cash is different.
Well, normally they had it in a cash box, so that's the way I was,
Yeah.
referred to
Now
it.
it's in a little.
Yeah, and one person had the key and you
Yeah,
vouchered it out that way, so, and
and that
that
all
way
just,
it keeps it separate.
that
too.
all just needs to be,
Yeah, but you get, with your accountant and that, she can probably do something on QuickBooks to keep
Yeah.
it right there and.
Yeah.
keep
but it just
it-
needs to be described, that it
Right.
needs to be,
Are you suggesting that more meat be put on the bones of this policy here on the administrative policy?
Yeah.
So it can be included in this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be a document that's got everything in it that goes on, so. And that's all I had, well, I had some other. Going through the, handbook, the organizational chart, have you updated a new organizational chart?
we do have a new one.
I'd like a copy. The ordinances need to be updated on the website and on our handbook. And then I had tab 2 on the handbook, which was, responsibilities and training, which is kind of redundant for the administrative part, because it just says, the responsibilities of the directors, the training for the directors, the committee definitions in there, so tab 2 is kind of, could be used for something else. So. And I guess I'll shut up now.
Okay, well, let's ask the community, anything from the community on what to look at next as far as policies are concerned? Okay, so we've given direction to the general manager, and that'll come back to them. Okay.
Absolutely.
5B is plans, memo from me, or if you wanna do the capital improvement plan first, you may wanna do that.
Well, I think it flows into it. I just put it on this agenda to identify for the committee that the district needs to do a capital improvement plan, and that, one of the questions that the LAFCO executive officer asked me was, list of district assets, how many people do you serve water to, blah, 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 what are your major infrastructure components, and what's your master plan, and what's your capital improvement plan? So, you know, it was with chagrin that I had to say, well, we got all this stuff, and we have an old water master plan, but we don't have a capital improvement plan. And so I suggest that we should look at and start this process. It takes some time to do this. But there's some real benefits to having a capital improvement plan. Number one, for your manager to start budgeting for things that are identified specifically in there. In the future, we are going to have to update our rates, and so you really need to have costs of capital infrastructure and replacement and repair in there, and it's really hard to ask people to pay for something if they don't know what it is, right? So if you have it in your capital improvement plan, you show it, because you want it to be open and clear. The other thing is, you know, the district has some specific assets. They have a water treatment plant. Hasn't been updated in a significant amount of time. We've got some projects on the ponds and other things like that, but, you know, we need to start thinking ahead and actually funding those improvements and lay them out over a 5-year period of time, 10-year period of time. We've got a conduit that probably needs some you know,
Yes.
updates and repairs. We've got, you know, back to the treatment plant, we've got a large tank. We probably need a 4 million gallon tank there, not what we have. So as you come through the system, you've got a north tank and booster facility that we should do an assessment on. And I think it has some good life to it, but it probably needs to be thought what's needed in 5 years. Not just, oh good, nothing's needed this year, we'll just not fund, you know, we're not planning for it. And then as you roll through the district, you've got obviously a significant number of miles of pipe. You have some that's 50, 60 years old and some that's 5 or 10 years old. So an assessment of that and a capital improvement plan for your replacement and all the rest of that. You've got infrastructure right here. You've got, you know, it's easy to say and to ignore. Most districts ignore their administrative and yard facilities until the roof collapses in their yard and the shed, or you know, there's a major leak in here or whatever else it may be. And then, oh my gosh, we hadn't set aside money to deal with that. And obviously you've got your south booster stations and your wells, and we're doing some work to update the scale. So I kind of laid out a little bit about, you probably see a little about my thinking, right? You know, so that's how the way I think is you got to be planning ahead, be, you know, open with the board and the public on what is needed, and then you figure out how you're going to fund it. It also really helps when you have things on your capital improvement plan to go after grants.
That's right.
Because you've actually identified them as things that are needed. So that's why it's on here, just to begin that conversation.
In previous audits, there have been lists of equipment and property and whatever else that we own, and usually with a date when it's going to fail.
Right.
Good for 25 years, good for 5 years. That list usually is not comprehensive, but that's a place to start.
Yes, it is.
But we need to do that. We need to put something together so we know in the future how we're going to fund these things.
Well, again, so you have your capital and you have your infrastructure in, you know, I like to refer to your capital improvement plan or your CIP as a CIIP. So that's your capital infrastructure improvement plan. Now, one of the things you're referring to, because that list gets mixed, we also have a lot of assets. We've got computer.
Yeah.
You've got the chair you're sitting in. We've got a bunch of vehicles out there. We've got a dump truck. We've got loaders. We've got a bunch of other stuff. So those are assets. So they're not necessarily, you know, in the ground water treatment plant stuff. But those are things that have not been analyzed, listed, like uh-oh, this truck's only gonna last 3 more years. How much money are we putting aside each year to replace that truck? Same thing with the computer, same thing. So that's the other aspect of things and that list, you're right, it was a good list, but it kind of mixes your assets and your capital a little bit.
Jerry, anything?
I'd like to see your staff, your crew, your field crew, those people, come up with a list of, things that need to be done, now, immediately, in the near future, in the future. I know we've got, plans out there for a lot of water line replacement and that, but I'm sure that, them being out in the field, they know places that might need.
Yeah.
And if you jog their memory, they may not bring it up at a meeting or something, but if you jog their memory, they say, oh yeah, we've got this. So.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I've asked, he left.
I was trying to get it in before he left, and.
Well, I asked Bill, and he's brewing a list constantly already for me, because I asked him.
Yeah.
But you're right, I mean, I've already asked him that question in many ways, but it's a good, I wrote myself a reminder, because I hadn't really thought of that, but for example, when I asked that question 3 or 4 months ago, one of the things that need to be replaced and updated, a lot of the valves that we have in the district are failing, and we need to be more strategic really where we put those valves, because when we have a break, sometimes we don't have a valve for like 100 customers, so we gotta cut off 100 customers to fix something, where if you had your valves updated and more strategically put, that's something, definitely my distribution manager, supervisor, that was one of the first things he said when I asked him that question 3 months ago. And then the other one is the meters, and that's why we spent some money to get some new transponders on our meters, so that we're not having to open every one of them to read them.
Is there any equipment out there that they need?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know that, one of the ones is a vacuum truck / trailer, and, those are things that, we need to, if we're gonna do it, we gotta do it right and not slapdash it, but you're right, it's a great example. Those ones doing it every day, they know better than I what it is that needs to be done.
And it keeps them involved, and, makes them part of this whole organization.
Yeah, well, like one of the other ones is, we got a truck that's, got a thrown rod in it and needs a new engine, We were laughing about how that's just an example of an asset that nobody thought about 5 years ago, that we should start putting some money aside. And I don't want to spend, $125,000 on a new truck, so I'm going to spend 10 or 12 on a new engine to keep it going for another 2 or 3 years, so we can do plan for that.
Anything from the general public on this? Any folks got any suggestions, ideas? Yes, ma'am.
So when we look at assets and, equipment, I think we also have to look at what we don't, if there anything that we don't need, that we could put to better use, or sell it, or, times change, needs change.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that would come up during a review of capital improvement. And we go, what are we doing with this?
Well, you're right, and well, we have really had the good fortune of getting some money from the fires and being spurred on to get our generator. So it was great that when Friday, when the snow hit, we were out of power, we backed that generator right up there, and everybody was able to work. Got an old generator sitting out there that we didn't use, so we need to look at that one and say, maybe there's a district out there that's willing to give us a little few bucks to take that one off our hands, since we're not using it. And it's not portable, so it's not really as useful. So the same thing with other things too, and that's why I think getting our, some of our operators involved and, you know, you do some inventory here and see what we need and don't need and see what we can do. The other thing too is I actually had a meeting today with the Water Resource Managers Group, and we were actually talking about sort of a new sort of government, kind of a government eBay site. In other words, agencies are like putting on there what they don't have or don't, and then some putting on there what they don't need, and other districts are, you know, paying them to take it off their hands because they need it. The example that was made was that, you know, one of the districts in our county is still using very old radios for their SCADA transmission system. They're out of date, not used anymore, so, you know, the best they went onto eBay to see if anybody was selling them. You know, when one of them broke down, they went onto this site, and some district was updating and getting rid of them, so they were able for a decent price get them. Bella Vista reported they put some of their excess equipment on there and then sold it to other districts.
Yeah, people buy anything.
Well,
We used to get Department of Defense stuff.
Yeah.
Fire trucks, we get all sorts, some of the tribes got all sorts of stuff. And I think it comes down as far as, like water districts, and I know cities could get it and that, but you know, the tribes, federal agencies have first crack at it, then the tribes, and it goes down that way.
State agencies.
Yeah.
Then it goes down.
Yeah, but you have to really send somebody that knows what they're looking for when they.
See, and I guess this, I guess, you know, maybe just my, you know, the way I look at things as your manager is there are a lot of opportunities out there, but unless I know what I need, I'm not willing to just, you know, I'm not, you know, my wife will buy something because it's on sale, because she just saved 35%. But I'm not gonna buy it unless I know it's in my list of things that my guys tell me I need.
That's why we need
Not
to
to
get
use
them
that,
involved.
hopefully nobody's mad at me.
Okay. So the other item is the memo that I put out. Everybody get that?
No?
Yeah, there's copies back there.
Packets back there?
Yeah.
Just take a look at it. What I am suggesting is that there are certain things that we need to do between now and then. And we better get started on it, and we better acknowledge that we need to do those things and get working on it. A lot of them have to do with the capital improvement program, because that's the way to identify the improvement that needs to be done. I've outlined some of the things that we need to do within, say, 1 year, and of course update the administrative policies, which we're working on right now. And thanks to Terry getting down into some of this, into the weeds a little bit about that. And again, developing a capital improvement plan, replacement of equipment to keep the system functioning properly, develop a plan to replenish the reserves when needed, and that will depend on the capital improvement plan. Include the payment of the WIN Act somehow, get that out of our system so we don't have to deal with that anymore. The only bad part about that is that we're still named in the suit that the environmental groups have brought against us, and it's very difficult for us to get out of the suit unless they got us out of the suit, which they don't seem to want to do. Consider to pursue that grant application for the cementing of the backwalk pond at the water treatment plant. Needs to get done, and continue to pursue the grant loan application for replacement of the critically deficient pipes and valves that we started back in 2020. And the grant, as a matter of fact, you could probably check with Pace Engineering. They did a complete study of the critical things that need to be done. Now, the whole system needs to be worked on, but the critical things that need to be done, replacement of valves, in putting valves in certain places to make sure that when you do have a break, you don't have to shut off half the customers in order to be able to fix it. There is, I think at that time it was in the neighborhood of $6 million, I can't remember. But it was a grant loan, and as a matter of fact, the $1 you're paying on your bill is to go toward that. And then I went on from there and talked about the things that we need to upgrade within 2 to 10 years, seek grants for replacement of critical pipes and valves. This is an ongoing process because this system is 60 years old. It's going to have to be replaced. What I didn't put down here, and I should have put down here, was also inspection of and condition inspection of the Newtown conduit. By the way, we own all the distribution. This community owns the distribution system. We got it from the Bureau of Reclamation for $1. And when we did a study on how they put it in, it turns out that back in 1965, 63 to 67, when they put all this in, they didn't do it according to general engineering specifications. They threw pipes in the ground, didn't put any bedding in, just put pipes on top of rocks. We proved that to the Bureau of Reclamation, and they were going to charge us $435,000 for the distribution system. They settled on $1. But we need to continue to change all those piping. There are areas you can ask the guys here, you know, when they have a leak or something, they dig it up and they go, wow, what is this? You know, where did this come from? Anyway, that's part of the things that we need to do. You need continue upgrades to the water treatment plant, and that would be per the capital improvement plan. I'm sure Bill has got a long list of things that need to be done. We just need to put it in the pipeline to get it done. Because without the water treatment plant, we don't have very much water unless we use the wells. Luckily, we can use 2 wells now simultaneously where we couldn't before. Explore the design of the replacement of the 1 billion gallon tank with a 4 million gallon tank. Make things a lot better up at the water treatment area. Explore the design and location of an additional well to be used during times of low water deliveries from the Bureau. In the past, when there was growth in this area, there is no growth here at all right now. How many new services have we put in the last year? Probably 0, right?
0
The year
or
before
1.
was 3. Anyway, this is not a growing community anymore. But when it is a growing community, a lot of the things that have been happening in the past have been on the periphery, and it turns out to be subdivisions. I live in one, Amber Ridge. You have the old one down over there along China Gulch Road. That's an old one that's been there forever. And we had at one time a proposal to use the 3,000 acres and put I think 1,000 homes or something in there. That didn't pan out. But we can't just dismiss the idea that there, at one time or another, the growth is going to happen, and we're going to have to deal with it. You know, we owe all these people that are in the district, we owe them water. You know, and we got to get water to them. And in some cases, like for instance, the one we had approved down in Cottonwood by the high school down there, that was 252 homes, by the way. We required them to drill a well and to help bring water into this system. We need that. So we need to look at somehow incorporating new wells or one well into our system so that when we have no water years from the Bureau of Reclamation, we can at least give water to the customers here. We need that. This is our job, to get water to people, clean water to people. Anyway, and then the other one was explore the use of solar installations. We had looked at that at one time, and for instance, to operate the wells down there, this is several years ago now, it used to cost about almost $400 an acre foot to pump the water out of there. It's probably more like $500 an acre foot now. Rates have gone up. You know, it'd be nice to be able to subsidize that with some electricity from the sky, you know, and that, so we need to take a look at that. We looked at it at one time in the past, and because we were really concerned about the rates and doing some kind of a rate study and getting that done and getting a new rate schedule, that we put it aside. But maybe in the future it needs to be looked at again. I could envision a solar field down at the wells down there somewhere. It would require getting some land, like we got the land for the wells, but I can envision that. I can envision one at the water treatment plant. You know, you could even put one here if you wanted to. You don't use that much electricity here, but you do at the water treatment plant, you do at the well site. You know, so I would suggest that as one of the things that we explore within the next 10 years. And then the one thing that we need to do, and I just remind the members of the board about this, that we approved the rate structure in 2021, late 2021. And part of the approval of that was to bring it back in 2024 to the board to look at it, to see if it's actually doing what it needs to be done. And we need to do that. We need to bring the rate schedule back, take a hard look at it to find out if indeed those rates are correct. We also, of course, next month, we need to look at the rates for the water based on the new allocations. But we also need to look at the base rate. And that's something that needs to be done. So I put that together as a roadmap. And I'm going to open it up. Anybody got any other ideas on what other things we should be doing? Okay. And I'm going to keep promoting this.
Yeah, just to the chair, and I think it probably was good then, now that I talked a little bit about the capital improvement plan and stuff, because obviously covered a lot of those things that you
Exactly.
mentioned.
Exactly.
And I do think we want to focus on it. I do just want to make a quick comment, because we had a little conversation of this with our finance committee. We obviously are going to be focused next week on updated rates because of our water allocation, making decisions on whether or not we think that water is going to stay with us and whether or not we should buy other water, but also updating our drought ordinance because the previous one's not applicable. I will just mention, Bella Vista just went from stage 5 to stage 3. I mean, we are technically in a water shortage period of time, so we still will be working with that. But you made a comment, and I've made it before, about the WIN Act thing. We do need to get that clarified.
Yep.
Because just so the board knows and the community knows, that WIN Act, basically, that is borrowing federal money at a very low rate to pay off the district's obligation to the Bureau for the facility, basically, for the cost of getting us our facility.
Right.
In exchange for that, the district gets a 15,300 acre foot a year contract, boom, rock solid, obviously drought and everything continue. But that's what we have. And if we don't have that, there's no reason to have a district. And so the other thing is too, I'm also very aware that is what makes everything out here have any value at all.
That's right. That's right.
So,
all the agriculture went away. You got 15,300 feet of water that you can give to the rest of these people who wanna develop out here. And who knows if agriculture's gonna be here forever.
But, you know, regardless of that, you have a whole lot of customers, you got 10,000 acres out here. You know, the assessed value of that to the owners is really based on the fact that they have water.
They got water.
And if we don't make sure we take care of that WIN Act, they won't have it.
Yeah, the other aspect of the WIN Act is that we sign the WIN Act, get it done, it cements the 15,300 acre feet. But if we don't, then we have to go back and negotiate with the Bureau of Reclamation, what, in about 5 years? Ain't gonna get 15,300 acre feet.
Especially based on our historic use.
So, anyway.
Thank
There we
you.
are.
Thank you.
Anything else? Shall we, then wrap this up?
There's a question in the audience.
Question?
Yeah, I see that, but he's a director.
You can't talk.
And he has a member of the public ask a question about a potential project or anything.
No.
I understand that, I figured I'd try.
I'm very
I was
uncomfortable with this.
polite.
I'm very uncomfortable with this. This goes beyond the Brown Act.
Yeah, that's why it just, let's not have anything from that member of the public or the other member of the public. All right,
So are
we're done. I would like to thank,
They got any questions?
oh,
Did you open it up to the public?
yeah,
any questions?
I just want to thank you for the first planning meeting in a long time, so.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming.